Good morning, and not here to impress you with my shooting abilities, but I'm talking about bows that are made from woods that are not commonly thought of as wood or bow woods. And you've seen this before. This is actually made from a balsam fir sapling. If I was to use a branch of balsam fir, it would have had finer growth rings and denser wood. However, this is just a quickie bow. Balsam firs grow just straight and fast, split easily, and you can imagine working green balsam fir does not take a great amount of woodworking effort. Very simple, fast bows to make. So this might qualify as a survival bow. You could make one in less than an hour, provided you know how to tiller it, and it would last long enough to, say, gather some rabbits or squirrels or other small game. I'm going to do a couple things here. First of all, I'm going to discuss the issues involved in making bows out of, say, I'm going to say it, don't listen, inferior bow woods. Now, there have been groups of people throughout North America and throughout the world that didn't have access to Osage orange or hickory or maple or oak. They weren't able to go to a big box store. They weren't able to walk out into the woods and get, those hardwood varieties, or softwood, if you're talking juniper, cypress, or yew, to make their bows from. They had to make them from what they had available. The Mojave is a really good example. Now, I've seen pictures, and I've read accounts, and I've read research, and archaeological evidence that the Mojaves would utilize cottonwood, which is in the poplar family. Populus nigra? Don't quote me on that. I'm just pulling it out. And they made their bows out of that. And how they compensated from having like a bow that was weak in tension, what they would do is deflex the limbs towards the tips. That means that, let me unstring this bow, and when they unstrung their bow, and you can see that this has a good even amount of string follow, it is balsam fir throughout the entire bow, which means the tillering is pretty good. I don't have any hinges. It's nice and uniform. I'll hold that there. See that? It's got string follow. It's got, let me unwind this thing here. It has, and I'm probably about 2.5 inches of string follow. It is a balsam fir bow. But what they would do is, when it's unstrung, picture it flat, no string follow, they would deflex the limbs. They would actually bend the limbs toward you, which is kind of anti-recurving, but that serves a purpose. If they were straight bows with a deflex, and you can see this on Comanche bows, the self bows made out of Osage too, straight and then a slight bend, slight deflex, opposite of reflex. What that would do would be to allow that bow to be strung and ready to use without any pre-stressing or having a draw weight right there at the very beginning. Just flat, deflexed, strung. This thing is not being stressed if it had deflex limbs. And so every bit of energy you put into that bow goes into the arrow. 100%, a little playing around here, 100% efficiency. However, it's not a fast bow because it doesn't have any draw weight right there at the beginning, so it doesn't have a constant push. It kind of peters out. This allowed them to use a weaker bow wood and still have a bow. Now, your draw weight is somewhat limited. This might go up to 30 pounds in a cottonwood deflex bow, but that's plenty enough for rabbits. Let me take this, which is not deflexed, just a standard D bow, because it looks like the letter D. Heat-treated belly to harden it, and that's a really relative term, because a hardened balsam fir belly isn't even near an untreat-heated maple belly. But, let's see here, and I'm not going to draw it back to Herculean lengths. This bow will tell me, John, you're drawing me too far. I will work for you, but you have to work with me. Come on, guy. Do a reduced draw, maybe 24 inches. So, let me do this, holding it back there. Look at that bend. and I am approaching 35 pounds. This bow, which isn't going to be able to shoot thousands of arrows, possibly hundreds, not thousands, but consider the material, the speed in which it was made, is a 35-pound bow. Now the Mojaves out there shooting rabbits or hares, not going to get into that, or birds or smaller game, 35 pounds, 30 pounds, very good. They would have typically, matched with these bows, there's some famous pictures, just heat hardened tips. They didn't have actually the mass of stone to accelerate. And so the arrows were lighter and they were a little bit longer, but they were lighter arrows. So the acceleration upon those arrows imparted by that bow, John Physics here, was reasonable. Let me stand back. I'm going to go back there, and there's my target. Let's picture that this little zone is a rabbit. I should be like, I'm standing back 50 yards, and I'm going to shoot this blindfolded after I've been spinning around. No, I'm not. I'm probably about between 15 and 20 yards from the deer. Got my rabbit, and again, you know, rabbits pretty much die if you scare them. Let's do another one here. Okay, well, I wouldn't say that that's like a tight group, but I'm in the kill zone. And that would certainly, watch this. As you can see, the deer target pulling back towards me, that was more than enough, you know, to penetrate the massive strength of a rabbit hide. And so, my friends, I'm not going to suggest that you go out and make a balsam fir bow. But what I want to do is open up this idea that you are going to take a material and you are going to work with that material. You weren't allowed to have Osage orange. All you had were balsam firs or cottonwood or even willow. Let me say willow. And knowing the capabilities, working with it, I heat hardened it. I didn't deflex the limbs. I didn't need to develop 35 pounds. I have a bow that was extremely quick to make and utilized the materials at hand. Bowstrings? Good question. Thanks, David. Ha. I accused you of asking a question, but you might. And so, bowstrings. If I was to have a 70-pound bow, I would need to have a very strong bowstring. And that would put it up into the range of sinew for natural materials. Possibly yucca. I don't know. I've never worked with yucca. But I know that sinew can make incredibly strong bowstrings that aren't really any thicker than Dacron. If you are out here and you're using milkweed, which is tough. It's hard to make a string out of milkweed. Or a honeysuckle inner bark or anything else, they have limits as far as strength. So it's better to go down to the minimum draw weight. And again, draw weight is literally that amount of pounds, and you saw that at a draw length. The string being the second part of the system, stick and string. Consider the strength of the strings too. And so making a string for a 30-pound bow or 35 can take a deer. I'm not going to suggest it because it does help to have more punching power. You're able to make a string for that bow because you don't need as strong of a string. There's less shock. If you were to have a deflexed bow, which is basically zero draw weight at the end, there isn't that boink, that shock on it, then you enter a realm where you need even less of a bowstring for that bow. So also consider the bowstring along with the bow. With that, I've yapped long enough. Yap. And I shall say goodbye and continue to wait for the roofers to get here to analyze when I need to do the roof and the fence posts and rails and other assorted goodies from the lumber supply, so I can start getting into doing some rehab out here. Okay, that's enough. Bye-bye.